you have a metabolic state where you have high levels of these pro-inflammatory molecules and inflammatory mediators. They're punching holes in this lining here, and they're penetrating. When they penetrate through that lining, it sets up an intense, like I said, inflammatory fire. And so it's raging and burning here. If you do aspiration of this and you look at that under a microscope and analyze it, you find out that there's T lymphocytes, granulocytes, neutrophils, immunoglobulin complexes in there that are basically inflammatory and immunological in nature. So there really is truly an inflammatory fire burning in the wall of the artery. And this can keep growing. If this fire keeps growing, it gets bigger and bigger, and then it could rupture. And if this cap ruptures into here, there's enough material here to clog this off completely. And that would be a heart attack. And that is what causes sudden death. For the most part, what causes sudden death, heart attack, is the rupture of a plaque. And unfortunately, 33% of people who have a heart problem, their first event related to their heart problem is a fatal heart attack. So you don't know when it's going to happen. And so that's why disease prevention is so important. They've even discovered recent medical information that I've gotten. There's actually been plaques that grow down into the muscle and don't obstruct the lumen as much. And so they're growing down into here. So there have actually been people that have a normal angiogram, which is they insert dye into the coronary arteries and they look for obstructions, and they see a pretty clear lumen in that blood vessel, but that person could die of a heart attack 3 months later, and that has actually happened. And they're now doing ultrasound probes where they put an ultrasound probe into here and they sound for the walls, and they find that people can have big plaques in the wall without much obstruction. But that plaque can still rupture, and when it ruptures, it creates an intense clot-forming situation where this blood coming through, when it comes in contact with this inflammatory material, it immediately starts clotting. So it's even more dangerous. It's even more important than ever now to do things that prevent this from growing, prevent this from being started in the first place, and that's doable with what we're going to be talking about. This time I'm going to have Gene come up. Gene is going to share a story about his medical conditions.
Well, what Dr. John is talking about is something that I knew nothing about 12 years ago. In fact, most of the information that he shares, I knew nothing about, and still a lot of it is over my head. I still don't know a lot of what he's talking about. But I do know that things are happening inside your body that you don't understand. And about 12 years ago, I thought I had the flu. And just to shorten the story up, I ended up at a clinic. He did an EKG. I was rushed to the hospital. They put 2 IVs in me with massive doses of glycerin. And in 2 hours, the doctor came in and said, "Mr. Only, we're putting massive doses of glycerin in you, and you're going downhill. We need to get you into surgery." Well, this just shocked me because I thought I was healthy as a horse. I used to brag about the fact that I never had to go to a doctor. I never smoked, drank just a little bit, not much, and but I tried to live a good life, and but I didn't know what was going on the inside. So I ended up in surgery, and the reason I was in there is I had 3 arteries blocked. I had one that was 98% blocked, one was 85% blocked, and one was 78% blocked. So I was just a walking time bomb, and they said it was a miracle that I even made it to the hospital. They did the angioplasty, which is going in and ballooning them, and so I thought, well, that's it. Okay, I'm fixed. I'm all ready to go. But it was just the start of 18 months of hell. Because over the next 18 months, I had 4 angioplasties, 1 rotablade, a 5 bypass surgery, and a right thoracotomy. A right thoracotomy is where they go into your back, they put a 14-inch incision down my back, took out a rib, and went in and took out part of my lung. Needless to say, I came out of that just wiped out. I had lost 60 pounds. Physically, I was a mess. I had no get up and go. I just was wiped out. And and they put me on 5 medicines, which, the medicines always have a side effect. And the side effect of the medicine was almost as bad as the disease was. And so we on that program, and my wife, bless her heart, is such a nurturer. She said, there's got to be something that's going to work, something that'll put you back on your feet. And so what she did is she started, and now here's the boy that grew up on the farm, and then she said, we're going to be vegetarians. And I thought, oh man, you know, I'm not sure I want to, you know, and but we did. We became vegetarians, and it just didn't seem to do anything, you know, other than starve me, you know. And so then she said, well, maybe we can condense this down and put it into a condensed formula. And so then we started on barley green. And folks, I feel like I became Shrek. I mean, I had so much of that green stuff going in me, and but it just didn't seem to make any difference. And in the meantime, we're going through, and our friends Marcy and Owen, who we've been, seems like lifetime friends, they were also working with the process, trying to find something that could get me back on my feet. And Owen is one of the top chemists at Sunstrand, or was, and he's partially retired now. But he would take and research and analyze vitamins and nutritionals, and he'd bring them back, and he'd say, Gene, there's just nothing in this stuff. And we went through that for 3 years. After we got through the barley green, we had another revelation. Okay, somebody came and told us carrot juice would do it. All right? So we started on carrot juice. Folks, we were going through 25 pounds of carrots every other day. Right? I was drinking over a quart of carrot juice a day. Right? I had it coming out my hands. I had it coming out my armpits. I had a natural carrot glow to me. But again, we think it helped some, but it didn't get me back on my feet. And then finally, Owen came back from Colorado on a trip one time, and we had a mutual friend out there, and this little lady had fibromyalgia. And she was not really pleasant to be around because she was just in misery. She was sleeping like 18 hours a day. She just suffered. And so, you know, we just sort of shied away from being around her because she just was in such misery all the time. Well, Dale asked Owen to come over for dinner. And Owen said, well, I don't think so. Yeah, I got things to do. And so, well, you all know what he was trying to do. And but Dale insisted, and he went over, and Patty was a new woman. And Owen said, Patty, what in the world are you doing? And she said, well, this friend told me about some product out of USANA, out of Salt Lake City. And so being the research specialist that Owen is, he called the company and he started getting information, and he said, Gene, come on over. We got to take a look at this. And so we went over, and at that point, folks, I just didn't care. I'd have tried anything. And so we got on the product, and it was almost like a miracle. You know, within 30 days, I was starting to gain my weight back again. And within 3 months, I got feeling so good that the only bad thing that was happening to me on a daily basis was the medicine. And so finally, I got up one morning, and I was just feeling so good, and I was a little bit high-spirited that morning, and I said to my wife, honey, I'm not taking the medicine. And she said, you're what? And I said, I'm not taking the medicine. Well, we had a little discussion about that. And I'm German, and I won. And, so I quit taking the medicine. But, you know, after about 6 weeks of prodding and 6 weeks of coaxing and telling me that I needed to do something because she was really worried. She was worried I was doing some real damage. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go to a doctor. So I went to a doctor, and, you know, I didn't want to go to that doctor. And you know why I didn't want to go? Because it was a bad report. I had to come back and tell my wife about it. And I didn't want to be a vegetarian again. So I went with trepidation, and, you know, when I got there and he gave me the results on the blood test, he walked in and he said, well, Mr. Onley, what we're doing is working. He says, your blood pressure is 118/72. Your triglycerides, and my triglycerides were off the wall. He said, your triglycerides have dropped in half. And he said, your overall cholesterol has dropped 35 points. I mean, I could have kissed this guy. I haven't seen him since because I had the urge, so. But I went home and told my wife about that, and you'd think that she wasn't elated after 3 years of trying to get me back on my feet. And so, folks, the good story, the end of that story is that that was 7 years ago, and I have not taken any medicine since then. And I feel healthier today than I've been in the last 30 years.
I heard Gene's story about a year and a half ago, and I have to tell you, it really impressed me because if someone would have said to me his history, I would have said, this gentleman has a year or two to live, and that's it. That he had 3 vessel disease, 3 arteries that were clogged to this level or worse, and he was basically teetering on disaster. And after 18 months of failed treatments, no energy, couldn't even get up and go to work or do anything, they said, what's his prognosis? I'd say he has a year or 2 to live, and that's it. But he's here today to tell us 7 years ago that was that, and now he feels better than ever. So what in the world happened here? The only way to explain that is that the supplements from USANA shrunk this plaque. He shrunk this down and put this fire out. So the slide I showed you with the fireman spraying the fire is exactly what happened. He came in with the right kind of micronutritional supplementation to put the fire out and shrink these plaques back down so they're no longer a problem for him, and the fire is put out. And you can see here on the coronary artery, the occlusions here are very dangerous. This artery is the left anterior descending artery that feeds the entire left ventricle right here, and your heart's a pump, and if that pump has muscle that dies in a heart attack, it can't pump anymore, and the conclusion is obvious there. But this is the danger. I mean, this person is hanging on by a thread, literally, wouldn't you say? And so we're real good these days at plumbing, because we can put a stent here, and a stent here, and a stent there, and we can prop that vessel open, prop those occlusions open, but that's only a temporary fix. We're really good at it, and it's really important to have stenting technology and angioplasty technology. They can put a catheter here and blow a balloon up and open that up. And so you could see that if you put a balloon right here and you blew that up, you could squash that down a bit. But it's only temporary, because if this fire keeps burning, the cells keep getting added, the toxins keep getting added, it's going to come right back. And so for Gene, they were coming right back. Every 3 months he was back in the hospital. So here is a table came out of reviews in cardiovascular medicine, atherosclerotic plaque, thrombosis, which is the heart attack event. But look here, inflammation, inflammatory cells, inflammatory cells, inflammatory cells, inflammatory, feeding everything, every angle to get into this cardiac event relates to inflammation. So if you're going to address the root cause and truly prevent or reverse coronary artery disease, you have to address the inflammation. And that's something that is going to make mainstream eventually. It's not quite there yet. More and more physicians every year are learning about this, but you got to address the inflammation. So what are my recommendations? Optimal nutrition, high quality supplementation, and exercise more. So these 3 are all important. All 3 need to be looked at. I'm not giving a hierarchy here of importance, but I'm saying all 3 of these things are needed in order to have and be in the right kind of health that you need to be and prevent these things from happening to you. So optimal nutrition, you want to reduce your high glycemic carbohydrates, eliminate the potatoes, get more into the steamed vegetables, the stir-fried vegetables, increase your protein with grilled chicken, grilled fish, even grilled steak, trimming the fat off, and reducing your saturated fats like bacon and bratwurst and that kind of thing. If you do this, then you will get into a net releasing fat metabolic state, which will then enable you to release naturally and methodically the visceral fat that's here, it's causing the problems, and make your entire body healthier. High quality supplementation with antioxidants, free radical scavengers, omega-3 fatty acids, and minerals. This is what we talked about with Gene. He was taking the USANA Essentials, which is 6 tablets a day. You can take them 2, 2, and 2, or 3 and 3. But that supplementation will put the fire out. So this reduces the visceral fat and the pro-inflammatory molecules coming from the visceral fat, which will reduce the fire of inflammation. This will put the fire out. What fire that's there will be put out by this. And exercise conditions your heart, your blood vessels, your body, delivering more blood flow. Your blood vessels actually dilate in the context of exercise. So many good things happen together in concert when you apply this to your life.